The stars had always called to humanity, and in the year 2247 they finally answered back. Captain Daniel Cooper stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Dawn, staring at the message that had arrived through channels humanity didn't even know existed. The transmission was clear, translated into perfect English by technology far beyond Earth's understanding. It was an invitation from something called the Galactic Council, and it would change everything. Earth's leaders gathered in emergency sessions across every continent. Presidents, prime ministers, and representatives from every nation debated what this meant. After 200 years of searching the stars and finding nothing, intelligent life had found them instead. The message was formal and polite. The Council wanted to meet humanity's representatives. They wanted to welcome Earth into the galactic community. The choice of who would represent all of humanity was difficult. They needed someone smart, diplomatic, and brave. They chose Gregory Hayes, a man who had spent 30 years negotiating peace treaties between warring nations on Earth. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen both the best and worst of humanity. Gregory had brought enemies to the same table and made them shake hands. If anyone could represent Earth to alien civilizations, it was him. Gregory was given a team. Lieutenant Karen Price would be his aide, a young woman of 28 who had graduated top of her class in xenobiology and linguistics. She was excited about the possibility of meeting alien life, her green eyes always bright with curiosity. Commander Jake Morrison was assigned as their security officer, a solid man of 40 with military experience and a protective nature. He didn't trust easily, and he didn't like the idea of walking into unknown territory without proper preparation. The three of them spent weeks preparing. They studied everything humanity knew about space, about potential alien life, about diplomacy and first contact protocols. They chose gifts to bring, recordings of Earth's greatest music from classical symphonies to modern compositions. They brought art, both ancient and contemporary. They prepared samples of human literature, scientific achievements, and historical records. Everything was meant to show humanity at its best. The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 weeks. The Council had provided coordinates and access codes to their jump gate network, ancient technology that allowed ships to cross vast distances in moments. Each jump felt like being pulled apart and put back together. Daniel Cooper piloted the Horizon's Dawn through 7 different gates, each one bringing them deeper into space that no human had ever seen. When they finally emerged in the Nexus Prime system, everyone on the ship fell silent. The station was unlike anything they had imagined. It was a ring world, a massive artificial structure that circled a bright blue star. The ring was so large that Earth could have fit inside it 100 times over. Sections of the station glowed with different colors, each one representing a different alien civilization. Ships of strange designs moved in organized patterns around docking ports. A voice came through their communication system, speaking in that same perfect English. It belonged to a being who identified herself as Zathara, and she would be their guide. Her ship approached theirs, sleek and silver, shaped like nothing humans had ever built. When they docked and the airlock opened, Gregory, Karen, and Jake got their first look at intelligent alien life. Zathara was beautiful in an alien way. She stood on 4 legs, her body covered in shimmering green plates that looked like armor. Her head was triangular with multiple eyes that could look in different directions at once. 2 arms ended in delicate fingers that moved with grace. When she spoke, her mouth didn't move. Instead, a device on her chest translated her thoughts into sound. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Zathara said. "You are the first of your kind to stand here. We are pleased to meet humanity." She led them through corridors that shifted and changed, adapting to the needs of whoever walked through them. They saw dozens of different alien species. Some walked, some floated. Some moved in ways that made no sense to human eyes. There were beings made of crystal that sang as they moved. There were clouds of gas contained in suits that pulsed with inner light. There were small creatures that moved in swarms, thinking as one mind. Karen couldn't contain her excitement. She asked questions constantly, and Zathara answered them with patience. She explained that the Council had 47 member species, each one contributing to the greater good of all. They shared technology, resources, and knowledge. They kept peace in the galaxy and helped younger species advance. Wars were rare. Conflict was solved through discussion and compromise. Jake remained quiet, but his eyes were always moving, always watching. He noticed that while many aliens seemed curious about the humans, others kept their distance. Some watched them with what might have been suspicion or fear. He made mental notes of everything, old military habits keeping him alert. They were given quarters in the human section of the station, a space that had been prepared for them. The rooms were built to human proportions with furniture designed from Earth's transmitted specifications. It was comfortable but felt strange, like living in a copy of home rather than home itself. That night, Gregory stood by the window, looking out at the impossible view of the ring world stretching away in both directions. "Tomorrow we address the council," he said to Karen and Jake. "Tomorrow we speak for all of humanity. Everything we've ever done, everything we've ever been, everything we hope to become, it all comes down to how well we can explain ourselves to beings who might not think like us at all." Karen was reviewing their presentation for the 100th time, making tiny adjustments. Jake was checking their equipment, making sure everything would work perfectly. They were as ready as they could be. Gregory thought about Earth so far away now. He thought about the billions of people waiting to hear what happened. He thought about children looking up at the stars, wondering what was out there. Now they would know. Humanity was not alone. The galaxy was full of life, and tomorrow, Earth would take its place among the stars. He didn't know that everything was about to go terribly wrong. He didn't know that humanity's very nature would put them on trial. He didn't know that within days he would suffer in ways he couldn't imagine, and that his pain would light a fire that would burn across the galaxy. For now he only felt hope in the weight of responsibility. Tomorrow would be historic. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a new age. Tomorrow everything would change. The council chamber was the largest room Gregory had ever seen. The ceiling stretched so high above them that clouds could have formed underneath it. The walls curved in a perfect circle, lined with seating for hundreds of representatives from dozens of alien species. Each section was designed for different types of beings, with environments suited to their needs. Some areas were filled with water, others glowed with heat or crackled with cold. The center of the chamber held a platform where speakers would stand, and above it floated 5 enormous seats where the arbiters sat. Gregory walked to the center platform with Karen and Jake following close behind. His heart was beating fast, but his face remained calm. He had given important speeches before, but never to an audience like this. Every eye, every sensor, every form of alien perception was focused on him. He represented every human who had ever lived, and every human who would ever be born. The presentation began exactly as they had practiced. Gregory spoke clearly, his voice carried throughout the chamber by technology he didn't understand. He told the story of humanity, starting from the beginning. He spoke about early humans learning to use tools, discovering fire, building the first civilizations. He showed them images of Earth, the blue planet that humanity called home. Oceans and forests, mountains and deserts, cities that glowed at night like collections of stars. Karen operated the display systems, showing everything they had prepared. She played music starting with ancient drums and flutes, moving through centuries of human composition. When Beethoven's Ninth Symphony filled the chamber, some of the aliens seemed to respond with what might have been appreciation. She showed them art, paintings, and sculptures from every culture and every era. The aliens watched in silence. Gregory spoke about human achievements. He talked about medicine, about how humans had cured diseases that once killed millions. He discussed technology, showing them the progression from simple machines to computers to spacecraft. He explained human philosophy, the questions humans asked about existence and meaning and purpose. He wanted them to see humanity as thoughtful, creative, and worthy of joining the galactic community. For almost an hour, everything seemed to be going well. Then one of the arbiters raised an appendage and the chamber fell completely silent. Arbiter Velkoth was massive, a slug-like being that seemed to be made of gray flesh that pulsed with inner light. Its thoughts came through translation as a deep rumbling voice. "Ambassador Hayes," Velkoth said, "we have studied your transmissions. We have analyzed your history. What we have found is deeply troubling." Gregory felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. "Please, Arbiter, share your concerns. Your species has waged over 16,000 wars in your recorded history," Velkoth continued. "You have created weapons designed to kill efficiently. You have built devices capable of destroying your entire planet multiple times. You have murdered your own kind over resources, territory, and ideology. How can we trust a species with such a violent nature? The chamber erupted with sound. Dozens of alien voices spoke at once in languages that the translation system struggled to keep up with. Gregory raised his hands, asking for calm. Yes, Arbiter, we have a violent history, he said carefully. But we have learned from our mistakes. We have grown beyond our primitive past. Earth has achieved global unity. Our weapons of mass destruction have been dismantled. We have not fought a major war in over 50 years. We have proven that we can change, that we can be better than we were. Another Arbiter spoke, this one called Shivex. Its form was pure energy contained within a crystalline structure that glowed with shifting colors. But violence is part of your fundamental nature. We have examined your biology. You are predators. You consume other living creatures. You evolved through competition and conflict. Every species in this council evolved differently. We are herbivores, filter feeders, or beings that process energy directly. We advance through cooperation and mutual benefit. You advance through conquest and domination. Karen stepped forward, unable to stay silent. That's not fair. Yes, humans eat meat, but many Earth species do. It's just biology, not a moral failing. And competition drove our innovation. It made us curious, made us want to explore and discover. Everything we've achieved came from our drive to survive and improve. A third Arbiter spoke. Vorgen was reptilian in appearance, covered in dark scales with eyes that reflected no warmth. Your aid proves our point. You defend your nature rather than acknowledge its danger. Let me show you what we have learned about humanity. The display systems that had shown Earth's beauty now showed something else. Images of human wars filled the chamber. Ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges and conquests, modern warfare with guns and bombs, the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, footage of soldiers fighting, people dying, cities burning. Every horrible moment from human history played for all to see. Gregory felt sick. They had chosen to show only the worst of humanity while ignoring everything good. He tried to speak, to explain context, to talk about the peace that followed those wars. But his voice was drowned out by the noise in the chamber. We have seen enough, declared the fourth Arbiter, a being called Nexum, who appeared as a floating sphere covered in thousands of tiny lights. The council must deliberate. The Arbiters conferred among themselves in a language that wasn't translated. The other council members joined in discussions within their own groups. Gregory, Karen, and Jake stood in the center of it all, isolated and judged. Jake's hand moved toward his weapon, but Gregory shook his head slightly. Violence now would only prove them right. After what felt like hours but was only 30 minutes, the fifth Arbiter spoke. This one was called Krell, and its form was difficult to look at directly, something that seemed to shift between dimensions. Its voice was cold and final. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity is deemed a potential threat to galactic stability and peace. Your species shows all the signs of a civilization that could become aggressive and expansionist. We cannot allow you full membership at this time. Gregory felt his hope crumbling. Please give us a chance to prove ourselves. We came here in peace. We want only to learn and contribute. You will have your chance, Krell said. But first you must understand the seriousness of your situation. Ambassador Gregory Hayes, you will undergo punishment as a symbol of your species' transgressions. This punishment will be broadcast throughout the galaxy, so all may see that the Council maintains order and justice. Afterward, humanity will be placed under quarantine. You may not expand beyond your current solar system. Any attempt to do so will be met with military force. Before Gregory could react, energy fields surrounded him. His arms were pulled back and restrained by invisible force. He tried to move but couldn't. Karen screamed his name. Jake lunged forward but was stopped by a barrier that appeared out of nowhere. No, Karen shouted. You can't do this.
He's a diplomat.
He came here under a flag of peace. The decision is final, Velkoth said. Take him to the agony spiral. Let the punishment begin. Guards appeared, dozens of them surrounding the humans. Jake fought against the barrier until his hands were bloody, but it didn't break. Karen was crying, begging them to stop. Gregory was lifted off his feet by the energy field and carried toward a doorway that opened in the chamber wall. As he was taken away, Gregory looked back at his team. He wanted to tell them it would be okay, but he couldn't speak. He wanted to be brave, but he was terrified. The last thing he saw before the doorway closed was Karen's face, filled with horror and helplessness. The public square on Nexus Prime was designed for gatherings and celebrations. Today it would serve a different purpose. Thousands of aliens filled the space and billions more watched through their equivalent of screens and sensors across the galaxy. In the center of the square stood the Agony Spiral, a device that looked like a metal tree with branches that moved like living things. Gregory was brought to the device still held by the energy restraints. His uniform had been stripped away, leaving him in only basic clothing. He could see cameras or their alien equivalents pointed at him from every angle. This was meant to be a show. A message to the entire galaxy about what happened when you were judged dangerous by the Council. The Agony Spiral worked by stimulating every pain receptor in the body without causing actual physical damage. It was designed to cause maximum suffering while keeping the victim alive and conscious. The Council considered it humane because it left no permanent scars. They didn't understand that some scars couldn't be seen. When they activated the device, Gregory's world became nothing but pain. It felt like every nerve in his body was on fire. He tried to be strong, tried not to scream, but that lasted only seconds. His screams echoed across the square and were broadcast to billions of watching beings. The pain went on, waves of agony that never quite peaked because each wave was just as terrible as the last. Karen and Jake were forced to watch from a platform nearby. Energy fields held them in place, making them witness Gregory's torture. Karen was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Jake's face was frozen in rage, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. They shouted for it to stop. They begged. They threatened. Nothing made any difference. 6 hours. The punishment lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, Gregory collapsed. They released the energy restraints and he fell to the ground unconscious. Medical drones moved in to check his vital signs, confirming he would survive. Then guards carried him away to a prison cell designed for the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. Karen and Jake were released shortly after. Zethara, who had been their guide, came to them with what might have been sympathy in her multiple eyes. She told them they were free to leave and return to Earth. She gave them a data module containing the Council's official decree. Humanity was quarantined. Earth had 1 month to comply with all restrictions or face military action. The journey home felt longer than the journey out. Karen and Jake barely spoke. They sent messages ahead, warning Earth about what had happened, but the full impact wouldn't be understood until they showed the recordings. The Horizon's dawn had captured everything, every moment of Gregory's torture, every word of the Council's judgment. When their ship entered Earth's orbit 3 weeks later, the planet was already in chaos. The preliminary reports had been enough to spark outrage. When Daniel Cooper brought the ship in for landing at the United Earth Space Center in Geneva, they were met by military personnel and government officials. The recordings were immediately transmitted to every nation, every news network, every device on the planet. Humanity watched their representative suffer. They watched him scream. They watched 6 hours compressed into a 30-minute summary that still showed the full horror. Protests erupted in every major city. People gathered outside government buildings demanding action. The message was clear and universal across all cultures and nations. This could not stand. President Helen Carter called an emergency session of the United Earth Defense Command. The meeting took place in a secure bunker beneath Geneva, a facility built during the last World War and updated for the space age. Around the table sat military leaders, scientists, politicians, and intelligence officers. The mood was dark and angry. Admiral Richard Blake stood at the head of the table. He was 60 years old, a career military man who had commanded Earth's space defense forces since their creation. His gray uniform was covered in medals from conflicts most people had forgotten. His face was hard, carved from years of making difficult decisions. "They tortured our ambassador," Richard said, his voice steady and cold. "They did it publicly, proudly as a message. They think we're animals that need to be caged. They've given us 1 month to dismantle our space fleet and accept permanent quarantine in our own solar system. What choice do we have?" asked Ambassador Claire Norton, a woman who had argued for compliance. "They have 47 species in their council. They have technology centuries ahead of ours. If we resist, they'll destroy us, maybe," Richard said. "Or maybe they'll learn what happens when you back a predator into a corner. They judged us for being violent. They punished us for our nature. I say we show them exactly what human violence looks like when it's properly motivated." The debate went on for hours. Some argued for peace, for trying diplomacy again, for buying time to build defenses. Others wanted immediate retaliation. Scientists explained the technological gap. Military officers outlined scenarios, most of them ending in human extinction. Through it all, President Carter listened and said nothing. Finally, as the arguments began to repeat themselves, she raised her hand for silence. Helen Carter was 55 years old and had been president for 6 years. She had led Earth through economic crises and natural disasters. She had united nations that had been enemies for centuries. She was known for being careful and measured in her decisions. "Activate Project Exodus," she said quietly. The room went silent. Several people looked confused. Admiral Blake smiled grimly. A few others, those with the highest security clearances, understood immediately what she meant. "Madame President," Claire said carefully. "Are you certain? That's a path we can't turn back from." "They made the choice for us when they tortured Gregory," Helen replied. "They want to see what humanity is capable of? They want to judge us by our capacity for violence? Then let's show them." "Admiral Blake, how long until the fleet is ready?" "The ships are already positioned," Richard said. "They've been ready for years, waiting for this exact scenario. We can launch within 72 hours. Then make it happen," Helen said, "and initiate the extermination protocol." Project Exodus was Earth's deepest secret. While humanity had appeared to be building civilian ships and peaceful exploration vessels, they had also been building something else, hidden in the asteroid belt, in facilities on the dark side of the moon, in construction yards beyond Neptune. They had created a war fleet. The reasoning had been simple. When you meet aliens for the first time, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. If first contact went badly, Earth needed to be ready to defend itself. No one had wanted to use these ships. Everyone had hoped they would never be necessary. But now they would launch, and the galaxy would learn that humanity's deadliest weapon wasn't any piece of technology. It was their absolute refusal to give up or give in. The ships had names that meant something to humanity. The fleet flagship was called the Retribution, a massive vessel 3 kilometers long that carried enough firepower to crack a planet. Admiral Richard Blake stood on its bridge, surrounded by screens showing the positions of 299 other warships. They were spread across the outer solar system, hidden from any sensors the Council might have pointed at Earth. Each ship was a combination of stolen alien technology and human innovation. 20 years ago, Earth had captured several unmanned alien probes that had been studying their solar system. Scientists had reverse-engineered what they could and improved what they couldn't. The result was a fleet that used alien power sources and human weapons design. The Council thought humanity was primitive. They were about to learn that primitive and weak were not the same thing. The weapons these ships carried would have horrified the peaceful species of the Council. Railguns that could fire projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Nuclear missiles redesigned with alien materials. Energy weapons copied from the probes. And the Star Killers, humanity's most terrifying creation. They were missiles designed to destabilize a sun, turning it into a weapon that would destroy everything in a solar system. The Council had never imagined any species would be crazy enough to build such things. Colonel Lisa Grant was in charge of the tactical planning. She was 38 years old and had spent her entire career studying warfare. She had read every military history book ever written and analyzed every battle ever fought. She understood something the Council didn't. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting itself. They were experts at war in a way that peaceful species could never match. Lisa's plan was built on human military doctrine refined over centuries. First, you identify your enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Second, you strike where they're vulnerable. Third, you make them hurt badly enough that they'll negotiate. Fourth, if they won't negotiate, you destroy them completely. The Council's weakness was obvious. They had never fought a real war. They didn't understand violence. They would panic when faced with an enemy who refused to give up. The first target was Nexus Prime. Not to destroy it, but to send a message. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the strike team, 20 ships built for speed and stealth. His mission was surgical. Get in, rescue Gregory, get out, and show the Council that humanity could reach out and touch them whenever they wanted. Ryan was 35 years old with brown hair and sharp eyes. He had volunteered for this mission within minutes of seeing what they did to Gregory. His crew was the same, all volunteers who wanted to hit back. They jumped into the Nexus Prime system using the same gate coordinates the Council had provided months ago. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The attack caught the station's defenses completely by surprise. Council security had never dealt with an actual military assault. Their systems were designed to prevent accidents and handle criminal activity. They weren't prepared for warships dropping out of jump space and immediately opening fire on defensive platforms. Fighter craft poured from the human ships like angry insects. They swept through the station's perimeter, targeting sensor arrays and weapon systems. Explosions bloomed in the void as alien technology met human aggression. Within 10 minutes, Nexus Prime's defenses were in chaos. Commander Megan Ross led the rescue team. She was 29 years old and had trained with special forces units from 5 different nations. Her team of 30 soldiers used breaching charges to cut through the prison complex's walls. The alien guards had never seen anything like these armored humans moving with such speed and purpose. They found Gregory in a cell designed to hold the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. He was thin and weak, his eyes hollow from weeks of isolation following the torture. But when he saw Megan's face through her helmet's visor, something sparked back to life in him. "About time someone came," he said, his voice rough but steady. Megan smiled. "Let's go home, sir." The extraction took 8 minutes. They fought their way back through corridors filled with confused aliens trying to organize a response. Ryan's fighters provided cover as the rescue shuttle punched back through the station's compromised defenses. But before they jumped away, Ryan had one more message to deliver. The Retribution had followed the strike team through the jump gate. It now hung in orbit over Nexus Prime, visible to everyone on the station. Ryan positioned the massive ship directly above where the council chamber was located. Then he launched a single kinetic strike. The projectile was a telephone pole-sized piece of tungsten accelerated to tremendous speed. It had no explosives, didn't need any. The kinetic energy alone was enough. It punched through the station's shields like they weren't there, through the armor, through multiple decks, and struck the council chamber with the force of a nuclear weapon. The chamber was destroyed instantly. Intelligence reports later confirmed that the Arbiters had evacuated to safety, which was exactly what Ryan wanted. The goal wasn't to kill them. The goal was to show them they could be killed if humanity chose to. As the human ships jumped away, Ryan broadcast a message on all channels. "You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. This is just the beginning." Across the galaxy, other human ships were already moving. Lisa's plan was being executed perfectly. Strike teams hit Council military installations in a dozen systems simultaneously. They didn't target civilian populations or colonies. They went after shipyards, weapons platforms, and military bases. Every strike was precise and devastating. Above 3 different Council homeworlds, human ships appeared and took up positions. Each ship carried star killers, and they made no secret of it. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy these worlds with a single command. The species living on those planets looked up at their skies and saw death hanging over them. Admiral Richard Blake broadcast his ultimatum from the bridge of the Retribution. The message went to every council member, every government, every news network across the galaxy. His face was hard and his voice was cold. "You judged us for being predators. You tortured our ambassador for being what nature made him. You tried to cage us in our own home. Now you know the truth. We are predators, and you've made us angry. You have 24 hours to agree to new terms, or we will show you what extinction looks like. We don't want to destroy you, but we will if you force our hand." Your move. The galaxy held its breath. Some species panicked. Others called for immediate military response. But the Council's military commanders looked at the tactical situation and understood they were in trouble. This human fleet had appeared out of nowhere, struck multiple targets simultaneously, and demonstrated weapons technology that shouldn't exist. And those star killers hanging over 3 homeworlds meant that any military response would cost billions of lives. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that because humans were young and primitive, they were weak. They had forgotten that predators survive because they're dangerous. Now they were learning that lesson the hard way. Gregory Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked at the stars through the viewport. 3 weeks had passed since his rescue from Nexus Prime. He had spent that time recovering, both physically and mentally. The doctors said his body was healing well. The scars on his mind would take longer. The ultimatum's deadline had come and gone. For 18 hours after Admiral Blake's broadcast, the galaxy had been silent. Then the response came. Not from the military, not from the bureaucrats, but from the 5 arbiters themselves. They agreed to negotiate. The meeting place was neutral territory, a small space station in an uninhabited system. The Council sent the arbiters in a small delegation. Earth sent Gregory, Admiral Blake, President Carter, and Colonel Lisa Grant. This time, the humans arrived with an escort of 50 warships. The negotiation room was simple, with seats arranged in a circle rather than the Council's usual elevated positions for the arbiters. It was the first sign that things had changed. Arbiter Velkoth spoke first, its massive form seeming somehow smaller than Gregory remembered. "We underestimated humanity," it said through the translation device. "We judged you by our own standards and found you wanting. We were wrong." "You tortured me," Gregory said quietly. "You did it publicly to humiliate my entire species. You tried to cage us like animals. Wrong doesn't begin to cover it." Arbiter Shivex, the energy being, pulsed with colors that might have indicated shame. "We have no excuse. Our actions were based on fear. We saw your capacity for violence and assumed you would use it against us. We never considered that our own actions might provoke the very thing we feared. You created a self-fulfilling prophecy," Admiral Blake said. "You treated us like monsters, so we became what you needed us to be. The difference is we can choose when to be monsters. You can't." President Carter leaned forward. "Let's talk about the future. The past can't be changed. Gregory suffered, and nothing will make that right. But we can decide what happens next. You have 2 choices. We can continue this war, and I promise you it will be worse than anything you can imagine. Or we can find a new way forward." The negotiations lasted 3 days. The Council wanted guarantees that humanity wouldn't use their military power for conquest. Earth wanted full membership in the Council and access to all technology and resources. They wanted the quarantine ended and the right to explore and expand freely. Most importantly, they wanted assurances that no species would ever be treated the way humanity had been. Arbiter Vorgen, the reptilian being, was the most resistant. "How can we trust you? You've proven you're willing to threaten entire planets. You have weapons that could destroy suns." Colonel Lisa leaned back in her chair. "You're absolutely right. We are dangerous. But here's what you need to understand. We built those weapons because we knew there might be species out here who would try to hurt us. And we were right. You hurt us first. But notice what we didn't do. We didn't destroy Nexus Prime even though we could have. We didn't kill civilians. We struck military targets and made sure you knew we were capable of more. That's called restraint, and it's a lot harder than just blowing things up." "She's right," Gregory added. "You thought being a predator species meant we were mindless and violent, but predators are often the most careful creatures. We calculate, we plan, we know when to strike and when to hold back. You could have learned that if you'd bothered to understand us instead of judging us." The breakthrough came on the 2nd day when Arbiter Krell, the dimensional shifting being, made an observation. "Perhaps the issue is that the Council has grown too comfortable. We have had peace for so long that we forgot what it cost to maintain it. We thought peace came from everyone being the same, from eliminating violence entirely. But perhaps true. Peace comes from having the power to fight and choosing not to." "Now you're getting it," Admiral Blake said. "Every human learns this growing up. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who starts fights. It's the one who can end them but chooses not to. You have to be capable of violence to truly value peace." By the 3rd day, they had an agreement. Humanity would become full members of the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. Earth would share its military technology with the Council, creating a new mutual defense force. In return, humanity gained access to advanced Council technology, scientific knowledge, and trade networks. The quarantine would end immediately, and humans would be free to explore and establish colonies throughout the galaxy. There was one more condition that Gregory insisted on. He wanted a formal apology, not just to him, but to all humanity. He wanted it broadcast across the galaxy, the same way his torture had been. The arbiters agreed. The ceremony took place in the rebuilt council chamber on Nexus Prime. Gregory stood in the center of the platform, where he had first addressed the council months ago. This time was different. This time he wore the formal robes of a council representative. The arbiters had offered him a position as Earth's first arbiter, and he had accepted. Arbiter Velkoth spoke to the assembled representatives and to billions watching across the galaxy. "We gathered here months ago to judge humanity. We found them guilty of being different from us, of having a violent nature. We punished their ambassador and tried to cage their entire species. Today we acknowledge our mistake. Humanity is not a threat to be controlled. They are a people to be respected. Their capacity for violence is matched by their capacity for mercy. They could have destroyed us but chose to negotiate instead. We welcome them to the council not as junior members but as equals." Gregory stepped forward to speak. His voice was steady and clear, showing no sign of the trauma he had endured. The Galactic Council wanted to know what humanity would contribute to this community. Now you know. We bring strength. We bring the will to survive against any odds. We bring the understanding that peace without the ability to defend it is just waiting to be conquered. We are predators, yes, but we can be your guardians too, if you treat us with the respect we deserve. The response from the council was mixed. Some species applauded or made their equivalent gestures of approval. Others remained silent, still uncertain about these violent newcomers. But it didn't matter. Humanity had proven their point. They couldn't be ignored or dismissed anymore. Over the following months, the galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Human ships began exploring beyond their solar system, discovering new worlds, and making peaceful contact with species outside the council. Human scientists worked with alien researchers, combining different perspectives to solve problems neither could handle alone. Human military officers trained Council defense forces in tactics and strategies that had never been needed before. And Gregory Hayes took his place as an arbiter, the first human to hold such a position. He used his influence to change Council policies, making sure that no species would be judged and punished the way humanity had been. He established protocols for first contact that emphasized understanding over judgment. He became known as the arbiter who had suffered and forgiven, though those who knew him best understood that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. 5 years after the 30-day war, as historians called it, Gregory stood in his quarters on Nexus Prime and looked at Earth through his window. The blue planet was visible in the distance, a reminder of home. Karen Price visited him often, now serving as Earth's chief diplomatic officer. Jake Morrison had retired from military service but occasionally consulted on security matters. Admiral Blake still commanded the human fleet, which had grown to 500 ships. The Starkillers remained in secure storage, a reminder of humanity's deadliest capabilities. President Carter had won re-election twice on the strength of her leadership during the crisis. Colonel Lisa Grant was now a general, training the next generation of military officers. The galaxy had learned to live with humanity. Some species admired them, others feared them. Most did both. But everyone respected them, and that was what mattered. Humanity had proven that they deserved their place among the stars not despite being predators, but because of it. They brought a perspective that the peaceful species of the Council had lost over millennia of comfort and safety. Gregory thought about the speech he had to give the next day. The Council was debating whether to make contact with a newly discovered species. This one had a violent history, not unlike humanity's. Some arbiters wanted to approach with caution or avoid contact entirely. Gregory would argue for giving them a chance, for understanding before judging. He had learned many things since becoming an arbiter. He had learned that the galaxy was more complex than Earth had imagined. He had learned that peace was harder to maintain than war was to wage. He had learned that being different wasn't wrong, and that diversity made the Council stronger, not weaker. But most importantly, he had learned that sometimes you had to show your teeth before others would respect your smile. Humanity had done that. They had proven they were dangerous. And in doing so, they had earned the right to choose peace.